Get your feather fans ready and disengage those cloaking devices. It's another bonus edition of A Strange New Pod live on Twitch. I'm your host and captain this week, Julian, and joining me in the continuum this week, as always, our strapping young ensign, Brittany Tomes. I, for some reason, froze on the lieutenant. This is live radio, ladies and gentlemen. The lieutenant of the best galley in Starfleet, Hawk, and bringing the, I don't know why I wrote it this way. I screwed it up. Bringing up the rear, the admiral of the airwaves, keeping our streams and view screens on subspace. Eric, go me for not reading our outline. Glory to you and your houses. And speaking of subspace, we have a very special guest this week joining us from our sister cast, Everything is Permitted. We have Matt Reppert on the view screen. Welcome to the show, finally, my friend.
I know it's been a while. I was wondering if I would ever make it on. Actually,
we saved the best for near the last.
I know.
2 episodes to go, so you're here. It's been a long time coming. How's everybody else doing?
It's been a long road, my friend. It's been a long road.
I knew he was going to say it. I waited for it.
It wouldn't be an episode of Strange New Pod without an Enterprise theme song reference.
It's true.
I think after this episode, I'm good. Like today was a good day because of this episode.
This might be my favorite episode of the season.
Yeah. Same. It is my favorite episode of the season. We will get into that. Also, welcome to anybody watching live on Twitch right now. We're very happy to have you join in on our discussion. Use the comment section and we might read some of them on the live stream. So here we go. As always, a big thank you to Sam Dillard and Samo Studios for our awesome intro and outro music. Also, if you're listening to us over a nightcap in 10 Forward or the Cerritos Lounge, which I like to go in these days, head over to logicalcoffee.com and use the code A Strange New Pod to get 20% off your first order. And Matt, as our guest, we always have to ask the question for our guests: what is your favorite Star Trek, your favorite episode of Star Trek, and who is your favorite character?
So I'm actually going to do this in the opposite order that you asked me. So I'm going to go character and go backwards because you're probably going to go what when I tell you my favorite Trek. So my favorite character is Mr. Garak, the humble tailor from Deep Space Nine. I've always loved Garak's ambiguity, his willingness to basically be devious and underhanded to get anything done. So yes, Garak is pretty much my favorite Star Trek character ever. I mean, I could have went with Picard or Data, but I felt like that would have been a little too mainstream. But favorite episode is In the Pale Moonlight, which is yes, that is the episode that established the whole, like, what would you do to do something good to help essentially the galaxy, you know, when Sisko helps murder a Romulan senator to get the Romulans in on the war. And that's also, it's a fake. So that's probably one of my favorite Star Trek episode of all time. But my favorite Trek is actually Next Generation, because I still love the exploration in what is essentially a giant cruise ship. And as I love Deep Space Nine. Well, it's funny. It's one of those things where you think about, because sometimes episodes you see children running around, and then you're like, they're fighting the Borg and shit in various seasons. Anyway.
The Borg love the children.
I know
they're easy to assimilate.
Don't forget the baby Borg.
Oh, baby Borg.
Baby Borg.
Wait, the Enterprise with a sticker on back that says "Baby on Borg."
Wonderful.
But yeah, Next Generation, because of as much as I love Deep Space Nine, I still give the edge to Next Generation because of the whole exploration, new life, new civilizations. Deep Space Nine doesn't really have that as much. It has more of the war epic.
And this is only one of the only times I could do it and maybe get away with it. It's also because Matt has a raging hard-on for Starfleet and thinks that they could do no wrong.
I mean,
we've had such good debates about it.
I know we have. Jesus.
If DS9 could have moved, it was just a space station. Just
it
pretty
could
much
move. It
just did in the first episode.
Slowly.
I meant it's not exploring a whole quadrant, moving, any sort of warp at all.
We've moved 10 meters to the left.
Yep. They're we're going near a planet, gravitational pull.
It's the customs booth for the wormhole, essentially.
Pretty much.
I like your pick for favorite character. I just had an episode of DS9 on over at the other house, and there was I can't remember the title of it, but it was Bashir was telling him the story of Peter and the Wolf, and about telling the same lie over and over, and that, and he's like, "Oh, is that the moral you take from that?"
He's like, "I got that. I can call myself a tailor forever."
He's like, and Bashir asked him what moral he would take from it, and that, and he said, "Tell different lies."
So they don't catch on.
Oh man,
I'm
I'm
very
a humble
surprised you don't
barber.
know. I'm surprised you don't know the name of that episode, Hawk. Out of everyone here, come on, Hawk. Where's the encyclopedia? Come on, man.
I know. Yeah, I'm good. I'm good with TNG. Some of the other series, the memories fell off. So
I
gotta
could
go back.
probably not quote any episode titles for, maybe Voyager, some for DS9, but I'm pretty good at TNG.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's been a while.
Maybe it has some more memorable names or ones that like really come to mind with the episodes. Sometimes you're like, why is this episode called this? And then you watch it and you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah. Every week, one of the traditions of a Strange New Pod is what we are now calling the Strange New Loop. And this week, since the Lower Decks team thought they were on trial, I asked the question, if you were to get in trouble with one alien race from the Trek universe, which one would it be and why?
a game prepped.
Oh,
Go ahead
know.
then, Matt, as our guest.
So I kind of went through the Rolodex of races, and I'd look up the name because it's been so long since I've seen the episode. You know, Romulan's too smart, Klingon's too violent, Borg will assimilate you, Geordi will make us go. So the Packlid. You're going to outsmart the Packlid.
Love Packlids.
We are smart.
We are smart.
We have fired. They will be destroyed.
Eric, you seem to be ready to go too.
I only picked I picked Q because out of everyone, I feel like the trial would be the most amusing to me. I know that if I'm on trial, it's just gonna go to shit anyway. So I might as well have fun while it's going on. I want to go all over the world.
Yeah, I'm kind of like leaning towards like what you said, but
right?
I don't know. I kind of want to be on trial like with the Ferengi because like
Profit.
you know it's going to be some like crazy like they will have all these fucking rules of acquisition that they're like holding against me. It won't apply to me anyway because I'm like, I'm a Starfleet. We don't even do profit. And they're like, "Argh." So that's probably why I'm on trial to begin with. But also they're just so tiny and their ears are so big. I feel like I just like, you know, if it really came down to it, you know, they sentence me, I could just push them over and like run away.
Yes. Just give them umogs.
Yeah. Pretty much it's like, oh no.
Sorry, Hawk, I stole it from you.
No worries. My next?
Yes, sir.
I picked a great one.
Don't let me down, man.
The perfect one. If you're going to get in trouble with one race of aliens in that, it's got to be the Miserians. This was from season 3, episode 18, Allegiance. When Picard was kidnapped and put in that lab with the 3 other
oh, yes, this
people.
is a good... Yes.
Yes, the Miserians are perfect. They're pushovers. They've been conquered like multiple times over and over because they're total pacifists. So if you're going to get in trouble with an alien race, you know, make it the Miserians.
Yeah.
Don't remember this episode.
I just thought of something else after Julian goes.
It's he gets kidnapped along with one other Starfleet officer, Miserian, and I think the other might be a what are the ones that stabbed Picard in the heart? Why do I always forget their freaking name?
It wasn't
The Manta Ray?
No.
Sorry, that was Steve Irwin.
It wasn't the Nausicaans.
I thought it was Nausicaans.
But it was a violent race.
Anyway, I just remember it was the Dom Job table.
I just realized the wording says get in trouble with one alien race. I thought it was on trial. I misheard.
No, trouble/trial.
Then I would have picked trouble with tribbles.
But no.
Just for the pun. Just for the joke.
All right. You were thinking something higher organized.
Yeah, you can stack them. Like you can make a hierarchy. You can make a pyramid with those guys.
Anyways, the Chalnoth. That's
Chalnoth. Yes.
The Chal. Yeah.
You shall not cross their path.
So I thought about this long and hard. I already get in trouble with our own race. So humans are out of the picture. I could probably like stand up to a Klingon because I don't know. I get loud quick and would probably talk back, and they respect a little bit of oomph. I don't know if I'd be able to do the whole like espionage if like I had to go on a covert mission on Romulus. I think I'd get made really quickly, and I'd try to talk back to them and be like, you fucking spy. And I wouldn't even go on trial. They'd throw me in a hole for the rest of my life and you'd never see me again. So I think it would be the Romulans. Yeah.
Remans suck, man.
Remus,
Yeah, man.
oh, they're the worst.
The
I love
West.
it.
Oh God, I love that line. All right, guys, let's get into the episode, which is the 8th episode of Star Trek Lower Decks. We only have 2 more to go. I'm sad. Oh, but actually, before I get into this, if you guys have any alien races, if you're watching live on Twitch or you're listening in podcast form, want to email us at estrangenewpod@gmail.com. Let us know via that way or in the comments. Who would you get in trouble with? Who would you stand on trial with? I'd like to know. We'd like to know. Put it in the comments. Put it in our mailbox. We'll read it on the show. All right. Veritas, episode 8 of Star Trek Lower Decks. We have the synopsis as usual. And Matt, as our guest, would you like to read that, please?
So, sure. So it's going to be Mariner, Boimler, Tendi, and Rutherford are caught off guard when aliens force them to testify about a series of seemingly unrelated events.
Usually they're a little longer, but this one gets right to the point. Also getting right to the point is the cold open this week, which we tend to talk a lot about, but it was super plot driven this time around, which was pretty disappointing, but I guess necessary. What do you guys think?
Ooh, to be fair, remember when, I'm skipping to the end of the episode already, but remember when the one guy walks in, he's like, hey, you rented out this space for 22 minutes and we're at that point already. Like that was the show being super meta. Like we're only like 24 minutes long. Let's get this going. So the cold open was that remaining like 2 minutes of time. It was like 30 seconds, but you know what I mean?
It was exactly 22 minutes when he said that too, because I checked
exactly.
it.
Was it really?
Yes,
It
it
was
was
20
exactly
sure.
22 minutes.
Because normally the
was-
episodes are 24, 25.
I counted 22 minutes, 8 seconds when he got through the entire sentence.
That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Wow, guys, you did
See,
a lot more
they were
homework.
meta.
I didn't. Yeah.
I just thought that was hilarious. I like cracked up.
I actually didn't mind the cold open this week because it sort of pushed you straight into the action.
Yeah.
It just made you excited more so for the episode, or at least it did for me.
I feel like it was very realistic for their characters as well. Like it's exactly what each of them would say suddenly arriving in an alien prison.
I just like Marin's like, imagine what the Klingons would do. Like she has experience.
She knows.
She's seeing things.
I've kind of gotten used to it being either going to be plot driven or it's going to be something singular and unrelated to the episode, and that. So, yeah, I'm good with that.
Seems serious. It ends up being the plot. If it's like completely out of left field, you're like, oh my god, is this the plot? And then it totally moves in a different direction.
Yeah.
I'll be the first to admit I've only been sporadically been able to watch the show as it's been on. So when I first started up the episode, I seriously thought I had missed the first part of something. So I had to go back to the previous episode and like click through, and I'm like, wait, did I miss it? And I'm like, no, this is just how it opened. So I was kind of caught off guard by that, honestly.
Yeah, no, it was very like fast and loose this week. So it does get right into the action. They're in what they think is a dungeon/prison. No A, B, or C plot this week. It is just an A plot following along. Each of the characters, I guess, separate missions, except Boimler, who, as usual, gets just ignored completely. But let's talk about those 3 missions. First, Mariner gets interrogated by the alien. She gets herself and Boimler to the bridge because they were too busy working on a shuttle, and I guess Rutherford did the opposite of what he said and turned the red alert klaxon way down instead of way up. So they need to sneak up onto the bridge. What do we think about their sequence?
I thought that was funny.
Yeah, I thought it was funny. It's not that Rutherford just turned it down. He turned it all off because the lights didn't go off. Nothing. It was just totally disabled.
And it wasn't until Tendi went to go to the bathroom that she's like, oh my god, we're in red alert. And they're like, oh shit. I really liked the conversation they were having before that. Like when they were arguing back and forth, and then like Mariner brought up Khan, and I forget who was it that Boimler brought up. It was like really
Denar.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And then she was like, Rogadar, get the fuck out of here. Like when she said that, I was like, crying laughing. I was like, Mariner is fucking hilarious.
No one knows who he is.
Exactly. She's like, get the fuck out of here. Oh man.
Oh, I love them sneaking. I love them sneaking onto the bridge, and that it's just, oh god, everybody's been in that situation. They get caught, and it's like, so what do you think of that? And they're totally unprepared. And that Boimler just throwing out everything he can think of. I think he even quoted to The Hunt for Red October with that Crazy Ivans reference.
No, I thought that was wasn't that also in Firefly? They do that.
Did they say Crazy
Hunt for Red
Ivans?
October is what I'm thinking. Is where is what I thought of as well.
Yeah.
I like that he was like 88, and I think that's like Back to the Future, because that's the speed you go to go back in time. Is he fucking serious? And then she's like, "No, you would never do 84 in this scenario. What are you talking about?"
Oh, I love that Mariner just completely turned on him.
Yeah.
He just send a message. Of course, Captain. Oh my God.
It was a Vulcan hello.
All right, now this is the question. How many of you in that same position would have done the same exact thing? Because that's what send a message means.
Definitely.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And they were being the aggressors, so it would be weirder if the captain was like, let's invite them to dinner.
And they're at
Unless
Red
it was
Alert,
another
right?
undiscovered country among many.
And why did she have control of the phaser banks in the first place?
Why were they sitting? I don't know. That was just their shift. That was their duty today.
The fact that there was
Shax, right?
Yeah, it would be Shax. I don't know why she had phaser control.
the fact that nobody was sitting at the consoles until they slid onto the bridge and all that. I was like, wait, then nobody noticed that?
Nobody noticed they weren't even there because they're too busy looking at a map.
Let's be honest. Most of these starships have autopilot, right? It's like a plane. Like takeoff and landing is manual, or no, it's the opposite, right? I don't know. Anyway, it doesn't really matter. Then we get Rutherford's side story here, which I thought was hilarious.
Brilliant. Oh my God.
Doesn't go well through this entire heist of an old school original series, Romulan Bird of Prey. What did we think about Rutherford getting shut on and shut off in updates? Must update Klingon accents or Klingon alphabet. Like, why do I need that?
It was Klingon fonts. That was the funniest thing. Because, like, why would they need fonts? Oh, man.
I did. Oh, sorry.
No, you're good.
It reminded me of what being a COD player is all about, with constant like updates that take forever.
150 gigs. Why?
That's like anytime you have to update your computer and you don't realize how much time it's going to take, and you're like, oh, cool, I'll just do a quick update, and then I'm going to like print this thing out, and you're like, oh God, this is going to take an hour.
I rendered this video for 14 hours.
Go ahead.
I loved every time that he went dark. He basically became like Jason Bourne, apparently, and just completely saved the day. And then it was like the Gorn wedding. It's like, oh God, Gorn wedding. And he's like, yeah, see you later. And it was like 2 seconds later. Oh God,
still Gorn wedding.
I love that the Gorns had Polaroids.
Wait, so was that his Gorn ultimatum?
Yeah, beautiful.
That's right.
All hands to battle stations.
So good. So good.
I think that this was almost a
So
giant
proud of
fuck
myself.
you to Apple. Like all the constant iOS updates and like security update, like iOS 14.1.2.6, you know, and it's just like the reboot.
That's just the start date, man.
I know we're gonna get to it a little bit more in our Easter egg segment, but in the museum there were a ton of Easter eggs right there. What did you guys pick up?
Jem'Hadar ship.
Jem'Hadar ship. Yep.
I should have written everything down. There was so much that happened in like 5 seconds of
There
that
was
show.
a Galileo shuttlecraft.
There's the first contact ship. From
The Vulcan first contact ship. I guess the guy wearing the Starfleet security helmet reminded me of the Search for Spock Starfleet security uniforms.
There's like a monolith that looked like the 2001 monolith.
Yeah.
And they had some of the old TNG style shuttlecrafts in there as well.
Was it TNG or TOS?
They had a Galileo TOS and they had
you said
two
TOS,
TNG, which I think were also called Galileos. Yeah.
Hawk?
Anyway, sitting there. Yeah.
I didn't. I actually have to go through a second time.
My encyclopedia is on my coffee table.
Do the fan dance, distract him.
Oh God, the fan dance.
The fan dance.
What are you
And
doing?
he's
Now
like,
you're
I want the
distracting me.
original fan dance. And he's like, I don't know.
I gotta bring up maybe one little point of that made me feel just a little bit uncomfortable. I know it's a cartoon and I know it's Star Trek and it's supposed to be cute, but Shaq's calling the two Vulcans that like he nerve pinched on the floor, Spock and Spock, seemed a little undertone racist.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, right? Like
She just didn't know their names.
I don't know if I would have called them Spock and like I don't know. That just did not like listen, I love this episode, but for some reason that just did not sit well with me.
I thought he'd be at least like Spock 1 and Spock 2, like Thing 1 and Thing 2.
Yeah. That was
mean,
maybe
But in how many Star Trek shows do they refer to him as pointy at some point and stuff when a character gets annoyed with him, you know, like pointy ears or
that
whatever?
was the 60s.
It's always derogatory things. Oh, did they do that in the JJ verse also?
Yeah, okay. There
To,
was
like, mess
one
with them?
pointy. There was
Yeah.
one pointy reference. Yeah.
See.
But see,
Yeah, but
Shax
it
has
was
been like overtly kind of a douchey racist a little bit. Like when they were on the Crystal Planet and he's like, oh yeah, those stupid wood guys. And he said something worse than that, but that was kind of the line like, I'd much rather be hanging out with you. It's like, that's not very Starfleet of you.
I thought they were just saying that so that the Crystal people would trust them more because he's like, yeah, those wood guys are really fucking weird. And then
I mean,
they'd
they
say the same
probably
thing
are.
to the wood people against them. They'd be like, those Crystal guys are really weird. So, I don't know.
Did you guys
Maybe
notice that oh, sorry, go ahead, Hawk.
No, I was just thinking maybe it has something to do with being Bajoran and that and being conquered. And,
Well,
you know,
that sounds
basically-
racist, Hawk.
But like, you think they would understand that it's not okay to judge a certain race
Yeah.
by their nose ridges, by their ears. Like, they dealt with space Nazis.
Yep,
Yes.
they did.
You can't turn around and be another space Nazi.
Did you guys notice that the shuttle they were using was an old Vulcan long-range shuttle from the motion picture?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that's why the Vulcans were inside of it, right? When they took the shuttle?
Yes, Brittany.
Okay. Well, I was just saying, like, I was like, oh
Vulcans
yeah,
were
it was a
inside the
Vulcan.
Vulcan
Because you
shuttle.
haven't seen that type of shuttlecraft since the
Okay.
motion picture. Yeah, and it was a cool thing. Damn you, Brittany.
Nice. No, I just thought you were like, did you realize it was Vulcan? And then I was like,
You mean Vulcan?
yeah, it's like the Vulcans were in there, sir. They were asleep. Spock 1 and Spock 2.
Oh,
Oh God. Let's get to my favorite moment of the entire episode. Tendi's arc of this Romulan heist. And as I put in our outline here, the motherfucking cleaner. Just absolutely the best. What did you think about Tendi going to pick up the package with Ransom and these jacked up black ops goons?
my God. She's so
I like
amazing.
I love the miscommunication. Like, that's hilarious. The amount of time she tried to tell them, like, yeah, I'm an actual, like, I was just cleaning. And they, like, kept cutting her off. Or they're like, com's got to go
Scanning.
silent now. This is happening. Yeah, scanning. And she's like, so that was just like, I know exactly where this is going. And it's going to be insane. So
I like how the sensor beeping started making less and less sense as to where they started placing them in the sentences. Like when he's like, we're going to go inside the ROM, beep, Yulin Empire.
I feel like it's because when she was recounting the story, she would be saying it verbatim. And then she realizes she has to bleep it out. So she's going in the Empire. And then she just like is removing it herself. Like redacted.
You can't hold information, guys.
Even I was confused about the role she was supposed to play as the cleaner in that. I always remember the cleaner from La Femme Nikita in that. And that was like, is she supposed to assassinate them?
Exactly. And I think that's what she thought by the end.
I
She's
think
like,
Ransom legitimately and his crew were like, she was supposed to clean us up by beaming us out, not do some crazy black ops shit that she did. And it was fucking brilliant. I loved it.
I
And
love when
loved-
she snapped and took them all out.
Yeah, dude, that was the best thing. Bam, bam, bam. I loved when Ransom was back on the ship and Tendi said something that she redacted to him. He's like, you're fucking crazy.
Yeah.
I love it. I love that. That was the best part of the episode. And listen, Q was in this episode, and I still think that was the best part. Yeah. Speaking of the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. John Delancey,
Oh my
Q shows up in this episode, and oh god, it was so good to hear his voice again.
Yes.
I love the two different scenarios they show him into, where they're just like explaining how like the higher ups, you know, as well-meaning as Starfleet officers are, when Boimler goes on his whole speech, he's like, yeah, well, they deal with these situations and they can't be infallible, because then that means you're not Starfleet or you're not a true captain, whatever. Goes on his whole thing. And like when it shows that Q appears just to like fuck with the higher ups, because you know he does that. He shows up and he's like, Janeway, we're gonna have a baby, and you're like, we are trying to get back to Earth. First of all, and then like he shows up and just to mess with Picard all the time, and he's like, is humanity really worth it? You're gonna prove it. And the game he set up where it's like a soccer ball and they're also chess pieces, and there's also field goal posts from football, and like 3 other sports are going on, and they're like, where do we start? They're like, I have no clue what's going on. Oh,
and then the soccer ball turns like gets legs and arms.
Here's a puzzle, and you're like, oh god, Badgie number 2.
Puzzles. Here's a puzzle.
But my favorite part of the episode was when he shows up again at the end, and they're like, he's like, it's time for a mind game, or like a time for a duel or whatever. And Mariner was just like, fuck you, Q. We've already been through enough weird mind-bending shit today, and just like walks by. And he's like, but like follows them.
I want to talk about that, because the way that Mariner is so upfront with him and the way that he replies, it sounds like these two definitely have history.
Yeah,
and he like respects her, because she was like, take that shit to Picard, like take that French shit to Picard. He's like,
he's always quoting Shakespeare.
Yeah, he's always quoting Shakespeare and drinking wine.
Can I say I was a little disappointed about how they used him in that? He was basically a flashback in this episode, and like, you know, when Q shows up on Star Trek and that everything gets dropped, and like that whole episode is Q and that. So I was so disappointed that they got John Delancey to come back for just a flashback.
We've been talking about this for weeks, right? Like, he's not going to be the whole episode. I don't think any of us thought that, right?
I also think the lower decks, they don't think they're important enough to have Q be a whole episode for them. Do you know what I mean? Like the actual crew themselves. Like he pops up when he's bored because he can't fuck with Picard. He can't mess with Deep Space Nine. He can't, mess with Voyager. So he's like, oh, hey, Cerritos, I'm really bored. And they're just like, oh my God, like, don't you have more important people to deal with?
But how cool would it be though if Q like actually liked them because they're interesting and fun and stuff like that? Like they get shit hammered and stuff like that, and Q's like, I'll hang with you guys because you guys are awesome.
That's probably what Mariner has done with him. I mean, look,
she sure
led to brothers with a Klingon chief. Like, what?
I think
Can you imagine the interactions he and Mariner would have had? Like if it had been an episode based around them.
I can't wait.
Been amazing.
I mean, there's a whole other season coming up, so
it might happen.
Yeah.
My favorite thing about Q showing up on this episode is I was watching in my living room by myself, and all of a sudden my daughter comes running in. She's like, Discord? Because he's the voice of Discord for My Little Pony. So she was touching My Little Pony.
That's
and I was
great.
like, what? And I did not realize that he was on that show. Like, I'd watched the show with her many, many times.
Pretty funny, because in Star Trek, he's like Chaos, and in that show, he's Discord.
Yeah, exactly. And he does the same thing. It's crazy.
Wow.
Matt, you said that TNG is your favorite show. Was this enough Q, not enough Q, just the right amount of Q?
I agree that I kind of wish the episode was more Q-centric. While I did enjoy the episode, as Hawk said, that like Q probably should have been the focus. Obviously, next season I could see them doing that. But I mean, once again, it was nice to hear John Delancey again, once more, because the man just oozes Q every time he talks. And I've always loved that.
His voice sounds exactly the same.
And that's
crazy.
That's it, right? Sometimes actors, as they get older, voices change. It's part of growing up and getting old. But dude, it was like the minute he started talking, I was like, it's fucking Q. Oh.
I like that we got a little bit of him, because it was like we just got the tip of Q. We got a Q tip.
Get off my bridge.
I knew where that was going, and I loved it.
Okay.
Loved every moment.
Oh man. Did we finally, getting back to kind of the main plot of this episode, did we like the final twist that this was not a trial? The eels were, I don't know why there were eels. Let's get that out of the way. I don't know why there were eels. because this was a party, not a trial.
Those were birthday eels.
But the eels didn't attack them. So I knew something was up when the eels especially didn't attack them, and they're just like, oh, why is there burning and eels? And I'm just like, you haven't died yet, though. This is really odd.
I got confused too by the eels because he did say death by eels at one point.
Yeah, but
when he was putting them
also, like the whole speaking to the horn of truth, and then it like they didn't necessarily tell the whole truth.
Yeah, I thought the horn would like say the actual truth if they spoke into it, not just like a megaphone or something.
I know it's not a real trial.
Great to be here.
I thought
like
it was a
that
dig at that absolute candor from Picard and like having to tell the entire truth because it was the horn of candor or whatever the hell they called it. I don't know.
It's a spoof of every trial episode of any Star Trek show. That's what this all
Undiscovered
was.
Country. Like straight up, I was just like, oh my god.
Yeah. Oh man, I said it, and we'll talk about it near the end, but this is, I think, my favorite episode of the season, not so far, not even because of Q. I just thought it was fun. There were good laughs. It still felt very Star Trek. So I'm happy. Before we get into our final thoughts like that, let's do our Easter egg hunt. And we just talked about it. Immediately, the prison is right out of Star Trek 6 with the Klingons, and not that they're Klingons, but the Klingons in the background in the red, and the freaking gavel that sparked. Basically, the guy who had them on quote unquote trial was General Chang.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
One eye and everything.
Alien Chang.
Roga Danar, the terrorist from TNG. Just
such a random pull.
Roga Danar, get the fuck out of here.
I love that episode too.
It's a good episode of TNG, but it is such a deep cut. Like some people who love Star Trek and could call themselves Trekkies might not even get that reference. So I had to look up Roga Danar after the episode was over. Another Khan reference talking about his chest,
early chest.
I want to rewatch the season and tally how many times they reference Khan. Like, just keep a running tally at the bottom, just be like, bing, 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 every time this happens.
Khan versus Q.
Pretty much,
bing,
yeah.
Bing, bing, bing.
It'll be like 27 each.
Oh my god.
This was probably my favorite Easter egg / reference of the episode when Mariner was like, if we screw up and get fired, we'll have to take an assignment on Earth, and there's nothing to do there but eat soul food and drink wine at vineyards.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh my god.
I love that line.
I laughed really hard at that part.
Dig at both Picard and Cisco. Damn.
Yeah,
that was
man.
a good
Not just
sequence.
Cisco's dad. Like, I would go to Cisco's Creole. Like, I would eat there.
Damn.
You know?
That's what
Yeah.
I want Mariner to become an amazing captain one day. But just because she calls the shit out of other captains in the show, but like I don't know if it'll ever happen. But she's just hilarious like that.
She's yet to call out Janeway.
Captain Clarity over here.
Yeah, Captain.
Right?
I said this.
Oh my god.
We kind of already went over all the things that we spotted in the museum. Anything else you guys wanted to add there? Did we miss anything? No.
Salt creature. Salt vampire.
Salt vampire.
Yeah, that was a good one.
And Ransom on a date with her.
Yeah. Shocking.
Hey Jack, that's a salt vampire. They went extinct like 200 years ago.
Kirk killed the last one. The Gorn wedding was freaking amazing. Polaroids and everything. Okay, this was cool because we eventually know what happens to Romulus later in Picard and in the Picard book before it, and also the comics that led up to the JJ verse films. It was cool to be on Romulus and see Romulans and see Tendi whoop all of their asses.
Yeah, it was cool that the neutral zone was still a thing because you're like, oh yeah, you didn't blow up yet.
Yeah, Romulus is still there for the time being.
Why did they need the map?
Why? Yeah,
that's the funniest thing. Like,
I love that we don't
there probably
know.
wasn't actually really a map, and this is just like how Mariner's like hyping up.
It's like Pulp Fiction, but Star Trek.
Yeah. The audience just had to see it in case they didn't know what the neutral zone was.
Yeah.
We have stellar cartography.
Stellar cartography. So great.
Matt, you brought up this Easter egg when the two Romulan Praetorian guards are walking. Like, you know who I hate? Remus.
Yeah, Remus sucks.
They're the worst. Then we talked about him a lot already. Q, all of his lines are brilliant, from talking in French to putting them in a giant game of chess. And oh god, I you know what, now that I think about it, Hawk and Matt, like, I would have liked a full Q episode too. Not to say it took anything away, but man, like, I'm ready. And then the news that Freaks pitched a Q movie to Paramount and they said no, and I'm like, what?
I didn't hear that.
I didn't see that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It came out a couple days ago. Frakes had pitched a Q movie to Paramount and they said no.
Damn.
They just made a huge mistake not picking that up.
Shut up, Wesley.
I was ready.
I bet you Q will appear more in season 2 if he doesn't get a full episode, because like I feel like a lot of this season, when they do have like those small cameo moments or references to people, they're like laying them out because they didn't know how the season was going to go. They didn't know for sure, are fans going to like this? Because it could have gone one of two ways. Like, people could have just completely dismissed the show.
Yeah.
Plus, John Delancey needs the work. My Little Pony has ended, so.
Oh my god!
You know what would be amazing if he was one of those characters like Hitchcock shows up in all his movies, right? Or Stan Lee shows up in every Marvel movie. If Q just popped up in the little corner of every single Lower Decks episode, like, I would get a huge kick out of that.
Isn't that
You mean like that little dude in She-Ra? Like the original She-Ra show?
Yeah,
who would teach you the moral?
Vulcan, but we haven't seen Red Shirt Vulcan in a few episodes. I feel like maybe one or two.
Haven't we?
I didn't see him in this one, and I've watched it 3 times.
But remember, sometimes they're very far in the background, and then you get called out for it after an episode.
Oh, get called out on the call out. God,
I just didn't remember that dude until that episode because he was never named. But yeah, if I had time to go back and watch the whole season, you're right. I only care for Smiley Vulcan.
Bunch of Picard and Enterprise references, because every time the Cerritos goes in over the head, Boimler's like, can you just give this to the Enterprise? Picard also, and a Borg reference, because Picard didn't know about the Borg, even though that's not true, because Q gave them advanced warning about the Borg. So Boimler was technically wrong about something for once. Does anybody know what the giant Spock reference was?
Apparently it's from the animated series. It was an episode from the original animated series.
Oh god.
I know. It was a giant. It was basically just a giant clone of Spock. That was the episode.
Probably my second favorite Easter egg reference of the entire episode: the Scottish ghost that Beverly made out with.
That one made me laugh.
As soon as he said it, oh my god.
Oh man.
Oh, because that was such late TNG, and I think a few people had kind of like stepped off the series, and then at that point, I remember that episode. I watched that episode
so
when it
weird.
premiered.
Everyone
too.
remembers that episode, unfortunately.
Yeah. Oh god, there were some good ones.
And her grandmother. Oh god.
Yep. And then finally, after Boimler makes his awesome, like, this trial is a sham because you're doing this and this, and Drumhead, he references the title of a TNG episode.
Another trial episode. Oh, so good.
Oh, man. Are there any Easter eggs that I missed? Did you guys pick anything else up?
The episode's name means truth in Latin. So,
It does.
I immediately was like, this is a truthy episode. Someone's going to have to tell the truth.
As soon as I thought the same thing, I was like,
Yeah,
Eric,
I was
you have
like,
them?
Yeah. Jax mentions the denobulan flesh-eating bacteria from Enterprise.
Yes.
And
You don't want to get it on your balls?
They'll eat through your underwear.
did you guys recognize who the voice of Klar was?
yeah, it was the guy who was in
Kurtwood's-
Voyager. Kurtwood Smith.
Kurtwood Smith from
Year of
Star Trek
Hell.
6 and Voyager.
He's a long time Star Trek contributor.
Yeah.
A Trek vet. Love it.
Trek back.
All right, guys. There are just 2 more episodes of Lower Decks left, and then we're into season 3 of Star Trek Discovery, and I can't wait. Speaking of Star Trek Discovery, season 4 started filming, which is super exciting.
Yeah.
Final thoughts on episode 8, Veritas. We'll go Matt, Eric, Hawk, and then Brittany.
So as I said, I've been spottily watching the show, but I love this episode, and it's one of those things where I really need to go back and watch every episode again in order, just for all the references. And I think I said this about the show a while ago, is only people who truly love something can make a parody of it. And obviously the people that make Lower Decks love Star Trek, and I have to respect that. And everything about this episode was just a joy to me, from Q to the Gorn wedding to everything in between.
Oh my God, yes. Totally agree.
Yeah.
I love that it just kept on building and building as the episode went on. And I just kept on, it made this episode gave me so much happiness in this time of strife in our world. So
Yeah.
it just like, it made my day, and it'll probably make my weekend. And I'm going to definitely watch it again as soon as we're done recording.
Nice.
I love this episode, even as you said, with just a singular plot in that. I do love that kind of Rick and Morty style of vignette where everything we get 3 different plots recalled through flashback. So this might be the best episode of the season so far.
Yeah, and I'll agree with Matt that you can really tell that the animators, like everybody working on the show, they've mentioned that they have been going back and like watching TNG, just watching Star Trek all the time in the background. That's where they pull all these amazing references from. And
Like
there's
Scottish
sometimes
Ghost.
exactly, and there's sometimes that I'm watching like Voyager and like I just watched that episode and then something happens on Lower Decks and I'm like, I just watched that. That's so fucking funny. So you can see the love that goes into it, and I'll continue to love the show for that. But like the cloaked birds of prey, I did not see that trial twist coming. Where, plot twist, this dude had a birthday party for his daughter turning 100, and he had to leave the premises because he only booked 22 minutes. I did not see that exact terminology, like that exact phrasing coming, I was pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, I think I've said it about 3 times already. This is my favorite episode. It was the second episode for a while. Nothing had topped that until this one. And obviously Q showing up helps that a lot. Tendi going full Black Ops cleaner also just made my day because I love her.
Tendi tenderizing some dudes.
Yes. Anything else before we wrap this one up? Awesome. Well, Matt, normally we would tell people where we could find your stuff, but I know that you're not on social media that much, and we already have our podcast enough. So listen, everything is permitted.
Shameless plug.
You.
Man.
A couple of quick announcements. We'll see you guys next week, obviously, for our episode 9 live stream. And then actually make sure to tune into our Twitch channel. That's what you're watching right now. If you're watching right this second, this Saturday, same bat time, same bat place, as we stream live and record our 10th episode of the show with special guest Mariah Gossett from Star Trek Discovery Pod. We are getting the Canadian confab together. It's going to be awesome.
Amazing.
We are going to be talking about the Voyager episode, The Omega Directive, which may possibly tie in to Discovery Season 3. So with that, for Matt, for Eric, for Hawk, for Brittany, I say to you, have a Q night.
Thanks for beaming into our podcast today. If you want to keep the hailing frequencies open, you can subscribe on Apple and Google Podcasts, YouTube, and Spotify. Like what you hear? Put in a good word with Starfleet and leave us a 5-star review.